Here's what Bruce said in the entire statement. A large part of the campaign, Paul, you can agree or disagree or stay silent on this because everyone else in that room seems to talk other than you about this, which is good for you. A large part of the campaign to promote Tony Boselli into the Hall of Fame seems to be hyper-focused on a single performance he had against me in a 96 playoff game. On the one hand, I'm quite flattered to be considered the gold standard by which another player's game can be measured to determine his qualification into the Hall. But on a serious level, I and other Hall of Famers, throwing others on the bus too, believe it sets a horrible precedent to negatively zero in on a standing member of the Hall's play in order to validate the candidacy of a nominee.
So I disagree with it on many fronts. First off, he's saying a large part of the campaign. I would say a portion of the case. And then I would say it wasn't negative about Bruce Smith. It was positive about Tony Boselli. Bruce Smith is already in the Hall of Fame. He got in because he's a phenomenal player. It wasn't him having a bad game that's been picked apart. It was Tony Boselli having a good game against an outstanding player.
Well, I think this is even more points for Tony Boselli that he is absolutely worthy of the Hall of Fame, that this game still sticks with Bruce Smith. It is personal to him that he didn't do more in this game in 1996. This also is so over the top. He says, maintaining harmony and goodwill in the Hall of Fame is paramount. It's precisely why player campaigns have historically been presented respectfully and thoughtfully, allowing the candidate's stats and complete body of work to speak resoundingly for itself.
There was nothing disrespectful to Bruce Smith. I could say this.
The vast majority of the positions, though, Paul, before you direct your attention to the camera, the vast majority of the positions have stats where you can back up an argument much more clearly than an offensive lineman.
Yes.
So you have to go based on how he performed against some of the best pass rushers in the game who produce stats
against
and numbers
those people
over a career that are Hall of Fame worthy. That's how we would measure an offensive lineman.
There was no disrespect to Bruce Smith in any of the arguments pro Tony Boselli, and I was in the room for all of them. And cases are regularly made, again, with how a candidate did against Hall of Famers he went against. That doesn't make him disrespectful. That's asking, is he equal, comparable, deserving to be have a bust in the same room with those people? Is he on their level? If he got shredded, if a guy's had a massive career, but he got shredded by all the bronze busts that he went against, that would be a strike against him. If he matched up well with those people, that would be a check mark for him. That makes perfect sense.
This is also just a really funny shot from Bruce Smith. Tony was a formidable opponent during his brief career.
Yeah, he doesn't like the brief career.
He also said, then he follows that up with, Paul, during my 19 years in the NFL, several outstanding left tackles. I mean, this is personal. This is personal, but he can say whatever he wants.
But we don't hear from these guys often enough for it not to be personal.
He's got a problem with any talk about Tony Boselli, and he's got a problem with the game he had against him, and he is still harboring a bit of a grudge because of that and any mention of that game.
But you know where where Bruce Smith would have been wise to have shared this information? Off the record with the Buffalo rep or anybody he trusts of the 48, now 49, I think, or I don't know the number off the top of my head, privately in that room. And I think
he should have shared it with whoever gave him the information about you guys talking about his game against Boselli.
Yes, and people were trying to get him to talk about that game. He could have easily, off the record, told somebody, I don't believe Tony Boselli is a Hall of Famer. And that would have come up in that room, and that would have affected Tony Boselli's case. And maybe been enough to alter a vote or two that would have kept him out.
Well, maybe he's thinking, and
not gone public.
I'm just looking at the other side of the coin here, trying to figure out why he wouldn't do that, because it's I mean, he knows the process. This is not Tony Boselli's first year as a finalist for the Hall. So if you don't think he's getting in because he's one of the 15 every year, but he's never one of the 5. Then you don't say anything until he gets in, and then you're like, hang on.
He'd been in the 10, and if you're getting in the 10, it's pretty obvious you're advancing. And it was pretty obvious what was happening. That offensive linemen were clearing out in a systematic order. And,
he was next up.
I think the tone was pretty clear that he was going to get in, but he wasn't going to be ahead of Hutchinson and Faneca and Moai. And then, other things needed to happen where there was a year where there was room. And that's basically what happened. And Bruce Smith's smart enough to know that that's what's happening. If he wanted his voice heard that he wasn't a worthy Hall of Famer, should have had it heard before, not after.